Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So if you're building, investing in, or honestly, even just operating a software as a service company right now, you probably already know that the ground has completely shifted underneath us. Today, we're breaking down the massive shift in how SaaS companies are being valued in 2026 and exactly what investors are demanding from you right now.
Let's just jump right in. I want to start by posing this really high-stakes question to you. What actually separates a 3 by ARR valuation from a 7x valuation in 2026? Think about that for a second. We are literally talking about millions and sometimes billions of dollars in enterprise value just swinging on a pendulum here. Look, the whole growth at all costs era, it's officially dead and buried. You just can't buy your way to a premium valuation anymore. Instead, it all hinges on a much more disciplined set of rules. And really, it comes down to one single metric that is now dictating the winners from the losers.
Khaled Azar from Livmo sums this up perfectly. He says the days of double-digit revenue multiples for private companies are not coming back. What separates a 3x outcome from a 7x outcome comes down to three metrics: growth rate, net revenue retention, and Rule of 40 performance. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it completely confirms that the market has fundamentally changed. Those wild, speculative multiples, they're totally gone. It's not about the hype anymore, it's all about the hard math of sustainable efficiency.
Section 1. The end of free money. To really understand where we're at right now, we kind of have to acknowledge that the 2021 SaaS bubble, the one with cheap capital and endless spending, has well and truly popped.
I mean, think back to that 2021 era for a second. It was all about growth at all costs, insanely high burn multiples, loose capital. Burning cash was actually tolerated. But the 2026 era, totally different ballgame. It is all about capital efficiency, balanced growth, and really strong unit economics. Today, private B2B SaaS companies are trading anywhere from 3x to 7x ARR, and that valuation is entirely dependent on efficiency over pure growth. If you're out there burning cash recklessly, investors are just going to walk away.
Section 2. The Rule of 40. Okay, let's dive into this, because this is the definitive standard of 2026 SaaS success, and the exact metric that replaced growth at all costs.
The Rule of 40 is beautifully simple, but man, is it hard to execute. Here's the basic formula. Your growth rate plus your profit margin, and you can use either EBITDA or free cash flow for that, should equal or exceed 40%. So let's say you're growing at 30%, right? You're going to need a profit margin of at least 10% to hit the rule. But if you're growing at a massive 50%, you can actually afford a negative 10% margin. It perfectly balances rapid growth with strong profitability. Basically, it's just investor shorthand for asking one simple question: does this business actually work?
But here's the stark reality. Hitting 40%, that's really just the baseline to get in the door now. Only about 11 to 30% of SaaS companies even meet that 40% threshold today. So what's the magic number for top-tier success? It's 60%. Companies that are scoring above 60% on the Rule of 40 are seeing 2 to 3 times higher valuation multiples than their peers who are scoring below 20%. So, how does this all build into the broader financial picture?
Section 3. Math behind the multiples. Let's transition into the hard data that actually supports these massive valuation gaps. All right, let's walk through these 2026 benchmarks, because these are your absolute baselines just to play the game today. For your ARR growth rate, the median for private B2B SaaS is 26%. But if you look at the top quartile, they're pushing 50% or more. And then for net revenue retention, or NRR, the median has compressed down to 101%, but those top performers are holding strong above 120%. Gross margins need to be sitting at least at 70 to 75%. And your CAC payback, which is just the time it takes to recover your customer acquisition cost, ideally needs to be under 12 months. Honestly, if your metrics are sitting below these medians, you are going to be facing a very, very tough conversation with your board. Section 4. Metrics driving the rule. To actually achieve that coveted Rule of 40, founders really have to master a few critical secondary metrics first.
First up is NRR. In 2026, the industry average target is right at 106%. Why does this matter so much? Well, because expansion revenue now accounts for 40 to 50% of new ARR at scale. Think about it. If you're constantly hunting for new logos just to replace churning customers, you are bleeding cash. Companies that manage to maintain an NRR above 120% are achieving valuation multiples as high as 8x. Meanwhile, the ones dipping below 90%, yeah, they're trading closer to a devastating 1.2x.
Next up, unit economics. For years, everybody said that a 3-to-1 ratio for customer lifetime value to customer acquisition cost was the absolute gold standard. Well, actually, scratch that. Not anymore. The new standard is a 4-to-1 ratio. Why the shift? Because the median CAC has literally surged to a staggering $1,200 per customer. Digital ad costs have just skyrocketed. I mean, Google ads alone are up 164% since 2019. Because it costs so much more to acquire a single customer now, that old 3-to-1 ratio is completely out. Top quartile companies are maintaining a 4-to-1 to 6-to-1 ratio. So the big takeaway here is, you absolutely must extract more lifetime value to justify these surging acquisition costs.
Then we have the burn multiple. This is simply your net cash burn divided by your net new ARR. So if you burn $1.50 to generate $1 of new ARR, your multiple is 1.5x. Venture investors are relying on this right now as the single best indicator of efficiency. An excellent score is anything under 1.5x. If your burn multiple is a 3 or higher and you're already past that $10 million ARR mark, you've got a massive capital efficiency problem on your hands.
Section 5. The AI Efficiency Advantage. We absolutely cannot talk about 2026 SaaS without addressing the huge elephant in the room, AI. It is completely restructuring these capital efficiency benchmarks from the ground up.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what's happening. Traditional growth stage SaaS is targeting a burn multiple of around 1.4x. But look at AI-native SaaS companies. They're operating at 0.8x to 1.2x. They're literally spending less than $1 to make $1 of new ARR. By using AI to automate workflows, supercharge coding, like that whole vibe coding movement we're seeing right now, and handle customer support, they are massively compressing their operating costs without slowing down revenue growth. They simply need fewer people to generate the exact same amount of revenue.
And because of that incredible structural efficiency, AI-native platforms, and I mean platforms where AI is the core product, not just some bolted-on feature, are commanding mind-blowing valuation multiples of 25x to 30x EV to revenue. Their structural efficiency perfectly aligns with the Rule of 40, allowing them to grow at warp speed while keeping their profit margins super healthy. It's just a completely different valuation paradigm right now.
Section 6. Winning in SaaS 2026. All right, so let's bring all these concepts together to show you exactly what you should take away from this explainer today.
Here is your 2026 playbook. First, maintain gross margins above 75%. Second, keep your CAC payback period under 12 months. Third, drive your net revenue retention above that 101% median. Ideally, you're pushing towards 120%. And above all else, you have got to balance your growth rate and your profit margin to hit or exceed the Rule of 40. Guys, these aren't just nice-to-have goals anymore. Investors are using these exact benchmarks to determine if you get funding and exactly what your valuation is going to be. Efficient growth is literally the only game in town.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought today. Take a hard look at your own dashboards. Look at your own metrics and ask yourself, are you building a sustainable business or are you just burning cash? If your growth is heavily reliant on burning cheap capital, the 2026 market is going to find you out for sure. But if you can master these metrics, really dial in your efficiency, and consistently hit that Rule of 40, you are setting yourself up for an incredible outcome. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Go out there and optimize those metrics, and I'll see you next time.